Hello, everybody! How is everyone doing today? Welcome to D&D Community. See lots of familiar handles in chat. Thank you for coming back to our tea party. If this is your first time tuning in, D&D Community is a monthly tea party talk show where our topic of conversation is one of our favorite things, Dungeons and Dragons. And today is a spooky edition.
Wow,
I refuse to say the actual title of the episode. Which is Hannah's fault.
Hey, you put it in a tweet.
That's true. It's ghouls and ghost teas. I mean, okay, when our show is called Community, we're kind of asking for it. But anyway, if you haven't tuned in before, I am Lisa Penrose. I am brand manager for Dungeon Masters Guild and also a variety streamer here on Twitch. I'll toss it over to Celeste.
Hey everybody, my name is Celeste Konowich. I am a freelance Dungeons & Dragons designer and podcaster, supreme ruler of the Venture Maidens podcast. Most recently, my creepiest adventure I wrote was Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden. So I have been submerged in horror for quite a while, and I'm excited to talk about it more.
Yay! And last but not least, Hannah.
I am Hannah Rose. I'm a freelance D&D editor and designer, and oh gosh, I'm working on some stuff with Celeste and the DMs Guild Adepts that is coming up that I'm very excited about.
Anything spooky?
There are some puzzles that could be
Puzzles
spooky.
are very scary for a lot of people, I feel like.
That's valid.
Actually, I edited James Introcasso's My Dad's Monster Manual, where he talked to his dad and showed him pictures from the D&D Monster Manual, and his dad said what he thought the pictures, what the creatures were, and made up some lore for them. And then James turned that into actual monster write-ups and stat blocks. And some of the creatures in there are very spooky. I think James will let me spoil this. He's talked about a few creatures on his blog, but there's a creature that's like a corrupted fae. If a fae dies in a horrible way, it becomes corrupted, and its purpose becomes to reenact its own death by finding people and controlling them into like a horrible pantomime reenactment of the horrible way it died.
James's dad gifted this to us?
Yes.
That's very like Sailor Moon villain, which I feel like it's very scary. Dramatic reenactments of trauma. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that one's very spooky.
Yeah. Jeez.
All right. I've already tasted it by accident just because the cup was here. So we should talk about what tea we're drinking because it's really good and I want to talk about it now. So again, if this is your first time tuning in, every episode we taste delicious, nerdy inspired teas by Friday Afternoon Tea, a blender right here in Seattle, where we're all located. And this month, everyone voted for Sweet Vengeance for our spooky episode.
Lisa, you wanted to do a dramatic reading of the
yes,
description.
The description is very good.
Okay.
Which is fitting because this is from the literature collection. The master of revenge knows it's a dish best served hot or cold, so long as it's served brewed strong and packing a punch. The master of strategic revenge, the Count of Monte Cristo himself, inspired this luxurious dark blend. Eastern spices accent dark flavors of charcoal and pomegranate oil with a whisper of leathery pine smoke in the background. A nest of clean, deep-roasted oolong and Assam black tea throw deep shade while holding themselves above contempt with their undeniable quality. Whoa. No need to be afraid to live the good life while plotting the downfall of your nemesis.
Wow. Oh, Friday
right?
is in chat and said she wrote that one. Apparently that's one of her favorite books of all time. So that's very cool. All I thought was like, is that a slight dig at Star Trek? Best served cold. But I get it. No, that was a beautiful description. I'm also a dirty cheater, and I'm not drinking that tea because
Who are you?
I'm bad at times and showing up at the right time. So I showed up early before the tea was voted for. So I'm drinking Queen of Hearts, which I feel still goes along the theme of vengeance and revenge. You know,
Absolutely.
since the head chopping business. So this is black tea, peppercorn, rose petal, and rose hip, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, that
Tell
sounds
Pepper
so
and tea.
yummy.
Yeah.
Tell us about the flavor.
Oh yeah. Okay. Smells. You get the pepper on the smell, which is really good. Ooh, that's nice because rose can be such like a hit or miss flavor, but this like really does it well at a right level, and then it ends with that pepper on the end that like perks it up and makes it spicy. Ooh, this is very
Yeah.
good.
I feel like rose can very easily become super overpowering.
Yeah, it
in a
can,
tea.
but this is like a really the pepper like cleans it right at the end and like makes it sharp. So thank you,
feel
Friday, to your sales associate who helped pick me pick this out.
I feel the same way about chocolate and cacao and tea, and this Sweet Vengeance tea has cacao nibs, but it's really subtle. It just adds some richness to the overall brew. And the
Rich is a great
blend,
word for this tea.
I'm so jealous.
But it's not like I'll get you some, but it's not like I don't know that. Sometimes there are teas that are like very watered down hot chocolate. No, this is tea. This is rich, flavorful with just a little bit of smooth spice.
I feel the opposite actually, but I really like chocolate, but I feel like a lot of teas smell really chocolatey, but then you drink them and you don't get that flavor at all. This, I feel like the cocoa nib is definitely pronounced, but in a way that balances really well with the other ingredients. Like I get a little bit of that, like a slight bit of that bitterness from the cocoa nib.
Yeah, I feel like you get both the bitterness and the sweetness. A little bit, so.
Good stuff. Good choices. Also, we're officially in fall, which is like the best time for drinking tea. I really feel like that we're in tea season, and starting things off with delicious brews is very, very good.
Is there a tea that y'all crave during when the seasons change during autumn? And same question to chat as well.
I think I really don't like chai most times of the year, but something about like a chai latte, like steamed milk, like with chai during this season feels very like autumn and like rich and perfect to me. So this is the time when I do get the fancy drinks at places. Otherwise I don't ever crave them, but yeah, like chai and then everything with like all the pumpkin spices in it. This is really that time of year for me.
People in chat are saying chai and also hot apple cider.
Ooh, apple cider chai.
Hot and cold.
Yes, that combination, put them together. Absolutely.
You should try that.
Ooh,
I started actually in the summer during weeks when it wasn't super warm here in Seattle. I started making my own like lattes because I'm stuck at home. And so I started just like taking Friday Tea's chai spice blend or the Friday evening blend, which is kind of a chai blend with cardamom. Very good. And heating up some milk and a little brown sugar, and then putting that in some strongly brewed tea, and it is so good.
One of my goals is to learn, like, to master making simple syrups. So, like, because I want to do things like a lavender simple syrup or whatever to, throw into drinks and like tea and stuff. And I made a jalapeno one for a margarita night I hosted on Zoom last week. And that went very well. So good. So I'm really excited to do a bunch of that this season to put into hot drinks. So
gosh. I love lavender flavored anything. Like a London Fog is one of my favorite drinks. Basically an Earl Grey latte.
Yeah. I also just bought Friday's Earl Grey with lavender.
That one's so good.
Oh
yeah.
my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I went to pick up the tea and I picked up like 3 more teas. There's one called Spice Must Flow that is so delicious. And that's what I start craving during autumn, just any sort of like spicy blend tea. So chais as a part of that as well. If we're making you salivate and want tea so bad, you should enter our giveaway. Type !GHOST into the chat and you will win a packet of lovely tea samples from Friday, including Sweet Vengeance, which we're trying today.
And if your craving is not satisfied by samples, I've seen a couple of people already saying, BRB, gotta go make an order. We have a community discount code for 15% off That code is Community Love. That's in chat. So you can order all of the delicious tea.
Do it. Treat yourself.
And there are usually some extra samples in there as well. So,
yeah. I'm like obsessed with Spice Must Flow. So I just want to say, if you were saying that you really crave chai, I recommend Spice Must Flow because it's really spicy, but it has like caramel and I think vanilla flavoring in it. So that makes it like really spicy but smooth. So it really gets that like flow vibe going.
How does that compare to the caramel apple black tea we tried last time?
Well, it doesn't have the fruity. Well, it has some orange in it, but it doesn't have that apple, which I think is a major difference. And the caramel, I feel like, is there just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. It's not like sweet, very sweet. Those are my thoughts, though. Should we talk about some scary Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes!
So that's our topic today.
Yes.
Maybe let's start with, do any of you and folks in chat as well have any memories that like stand out in like scary games you've played?
Scary games or scary moments in overall game that wasn't necessarily scary. And while we hear from chat about that, I just want to throw out really quickly so we can establish it and move on to talking about themes and plots and sessions, that obviously if you're doing scary stuff with your group, whether you're a DM or a player, it is a good idea to go over some things in a safety toolkit and use some safety rules. So if you have a player who's arachnophobic or a player who gets really squicked out by body horror or limbs or burned things, you don't freak out the players at your table to a point where they're uncomfortable and not enjoying the game. There are some fantastic safety toolkit resources out there. So yeah, a good idea to discuss that with your group at a session 0 or any time if you're bringing spooky stuff and horror into the game.
Yeah, and it's super easy too, you know, even if you can't find specific rule, like a toolkit that we recommend or look for, like just Google safety tools for RPGs. And luckily lots of online conventions now have pages out there. I promise you'll get hits immediately. The ones that I really like to use, the X card tool is really great. And then also Lines and Veils are the two I usually use. So I totally recommend checking those out. And you'll probably learn something. And you know what? It's worth asking because a lot of people have things that they may not know that they're like afraid of or they don't want to see in a game until you ask them what they would prefer to avoid. And then that really does bring up a lot of things that people maybe have never thought about before.
And you can also find out what people would prefer to see. If people want those scary spooks with, you know, mysteries or ghosts or, you know, creepy undead that their paladin can smite, that it's great to lean into the things that players are excited about too.
Yeah, I feel like the X card gets a lot of discussion, and we've talked about it on this show as well. Lines and Veils, if you're not familiar, are establishing what boundaries players have ahead of time. And that can be hard lines. So like these are things they don't want to show up at all. There can be soft lines where they're okay with things kind of maybe happening off screen, but being mentioned. And that sort of like movie language is another tool as well, off screen or on screen. But establishing what folks' boundaries are also helps you learn what are things that aren't boundaries for them that you can really lean into. It's a lot more fun, I think, playing scary games when you know you're going to feel safe, so you can kind of like let go and just be totally spooked out by what does occur in the game.
We have some great comments in chat about people sharing some stories, which is really great. Danny Yogani says, in our homebrew, we found a terrifying cabin in the woods and a possessed doll that had me standing on my chair yelling. It was fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Scary toys.
Scary dolls.
Yeah.
Or children, like that whole thing. So frightening. That sounds like a really good time.
Things that are supposed to be very precious, that don't belong, are really scary.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, Justice! Probably the time that I was DMing for our annual spooky one-shot and went to turn on a colored light during an extra spooky part. I accidentally turned off the light for about 1 second, and there was immediate table chaos.
There's about to be a murder!
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, so good. So good. Yes, Friday says scary dolls and childlike things are so spooky. Nursery rhymes, sing-song voices, yikes, big yikes. Oh yeah, for sure.
That's one thing I love about the Oni monster, is that it's this, big scary ogre that is very powerful and can just hit you and vanish, but it's also can disguise itself, can take the form of a normal humanoid, and you don't necessarily know that it's this big ogre.
That's
and
spooky.
the lore around it is this nursery rhyme kind of thing of don't go out of your bed at night. The Oni is stalking down the hallway. It's coming into your room.
I don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably my proudest I guess most recent scary adventure was that I had this ancient castle that people had found and moved into the top layers, and they're like, oh sweet, this cool castle, and then of course they discovered underneath it were all of these basement levels, where essentially the person who built this castle first was kind of like a artificer, inventor, sort of pseudo psychologist individual. So they built these this lab underneath this castle where they were experimenting on all of this brain stuff, just scary brain stuff. And so we had rooms, that would summon people's worst fears, and so he could track how that worked. And then also in one point there was an elder brain that was contained that he was experimenting on. It was a whole very scary thing because brain stuff and surgeons and that whole kind of thing really, really scares me. So I feel like I made a really good dungeon that really played to my character's fears specifically. Which was a lot of fun for me and for them. At the end, they told me they did have fun, even if on screen that was for Venture Maiden. So sorry, I didn't give any big spoilers, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. Dungeon Mom Design says, last night when we were playtesting Heart of the House, which is coming to Dungeon Masters Guild and looks beautifully designed and super scary, the players were very unnerved by the woman that was alive but not breathing and didn't show in any sort of divine sense. She was catatonic and just sort of let them lead her around, didn't move unless moved.
Ooh, that is...
I love horror stuff that's kind of almost more just atmospheric. If she served no purpose aside from just to be totally spooky like that, I'm down for it.
Yeah. What about all of you? What's a spooky game memory that you have?
I think for me, it's kind of linked to what Friday just said. She referenced the Doctor Who Are You My Mummy kid. So spooky children asking for their mothers really scares me. And it reminds me of Tales from the Mists, the Ravenloft actual play I was in. TK described pretty early on in the show this corpse, and we made the mistake of casting Speak with Dead on it.
You did.
No. It was Vargas.
Okay.
Don't blame me.
I didn't do
it. And TK ran with Speak with Dead and made it so scary, describing the creaking neck and the jerky motions, but also all she did was just repeat over and over again, I want my mama. And it was just so scary. Just just things being repeated over and over like that. Very unnerving.
Yeah.
I think my scariest moment is also from Tales from the Mist. It is actually just me thinking about the character backstory I worked out with TK. Spoilers for the first few episodes of Tales from the Mist, I guess, if you haven't listened to it yet. But my character Pandora, it was a paladin, who is an elf, paladin of the ancients, and she hated undead and vampires with a passion. Her mission was to destroy vampires because vampires are awful and evil. But her entire group had been attacked by the vampires she was hunting at one point, and they all died. They were all slain, and she was turned into a vampire. And she hated this so much of like being the thing that she was hunting down that was horrible and she was bound to smite, that she staked herself. And then ended up rising through the dark powers and was sort of not kind of ish undead. Yeah, so just the imagery, I guess, content warning there, sorry, but just the imagery of her being so horrified that she would do that to herself was really powerful and scary for me.
Yeah. I feel like the three of us have talked a lot about like psychological horror, but there's lots of different types of horror that people can just enjoy in general in media, but also as part of their games.
Rime of the Frostmaiden has a lot of content warning body horror stuff that happens, since it is so heavily inspired by, you know, films like John Carpenter's The Thing, which is all about, I learned something very interesting about The Thing, that like they used almost 95% of like the movie's $1 million budget on like the special effects, like the latex and like the tools to make like the creature look horrifying, which is just it works so much. It stands up in such a scary way. I just recently rewatched it, and like just the image, just tentacles and fleshy things and like alien body stuff. It was bananas, and a lot of that has made it into Rime of the Frostmaiden as well. So that, I mean, in particular, I also wrote a sidebar for that book about like lines and veils that got included in the first few pages, which I'm super duper proud of. But like, wow, that's a big thing for horror.
Yeah. So
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to ask Celeste, so what are ways to incorporate body horror into a game?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the, there are so many great tools already built in the monsters in Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like the way to start is to find the monsters and then like go from there. So things like things that come to mind, like slads, for example, they implant eggs in humans and they burst out as tadpoles, and that's how they recreate.
Yep.
Things like that. Anything with tentacles, any aberrations is a good place to start, and then look at what they do and what the functions of these creatures are, because a lot of these things that we perceive as body horror, it does come down to scary things that do exist in nature. I mean, when you're looking at the way like fish or mollusks or like other beings on this planet, how they interact with each other and what they need to do to survive, and then you put that on a bigger scale in your game. So, if the most horrifying thing is like when you encounter, these beings that need to eat or like interact with your players to survive themselves, and then putting it on that stage, I feel like is the most compelling way to add body horror to your game, because it's not the fact that like this creature is murderous and coming to kill you. It's like, oh no, it needs you to like breed.
Also, they're like super goopy and like covered with boils and
I think the biggest thing you're going to want to do with that is like really work on your descriptions before you walk into combat. So look at like the different attacks you have and maybe make some keywords for yourself about what that looks like. So when you do describe that interaction, you can go to the keywords that are already like evocative and ready to go. So that's my big recommendation.
Show the monster manual art to your players. Like, yeah.
I think sometimes it's even worse if you don't show them the art,
Sure.
and then you try to describe what it is. And then also the big setups too, I think, for body horror is really important. So like how the environment has changed. Because, if you walk into that scene, like one of the most powerful things like in the Alien franchise is, when they like walk into that room and they look up and they see like crew members in like these sacks of goo everywhere. Like if you see that, before you actually see the monster, like your players are going to do a lot of the work of creating the horror for you. So that's really how you need to set up these scenes in terms of timing is everything in horror movies and should be the same in horror games.
I'm really glad that it is in the morning here because I'm scared very easily, and just listening to Celeste talk about body horror has scared me. I think the point you made about how it's not just that the creature is like has no motivation, is just like murderous, but that it needs you means it's going to stop at nothing because there's this like deep instinctual need to just eviscerate you.
That's the scary stuff that I just gets me going. So I feel like that's what I do in my designs as well.
One thing I found with scary things in games is that they end up actually setting up or resulting in a lot of humor, because it's I think natural that people want to, people want to be silly in D&D, even if you're having a very serious, character driven or tense game. People want that relief of having something funny or making the horrible into something funny. One game I was in had quite a bit of body horror because we found all these like recycled body parts, and there was just this pile of body parts. And that was pretty scary. And there was a severed hand that had a wedding ring on it, which was spooky and a both
what a detail.
Like body horror and psychological level. But then when we had to fight the hand, our artificer used heat metal on the wedding ring, and it just killed the hand, and there was nothing the hand could do about it because it can't take off the ring.
Right.
It has no other hand.
Yeah. So it ended up being very funny. Yeah, Carolina the Geek is in that game, and it was so good. It was like so scary, right? Because we were fighting these dismembered body parts, and the hand was crawling after us down the corridor. And then we just slam dunked it into like burning up. It was very good.
I'm like trying to take my ring off with just my one hand and thinking about the hand squirming, and then I'm like, I guess I could like flail my hand, but then that's even scarier thinking about a severed hand doing that.
To take off its own ring.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. I feel like another genre of horror are just like slasher, zombie apocalypse, like so many monsters. It's so less necessarily about like the scary motivation of one nefarious creature, but just the volume of monsters. When I was at D&D in a Castle last year, Mark Meir had this like really cool graveyard set up, and the party went there and then like basically threw down, I feel like 100 is maybe exaggerating, but also maybe not, put down like 100 minis of skeletons and zombies that they had to deal with on the map. And I think that was scary in that it's like intimidating just to even visually see this encounter, but also like kind of a delight because then you get to like mow through all of these monsters and be really badass, which is also fun.
Yeah, I definitely am finding, like, now, because with Venture Maidens, a campaign I've been running for a really long time, I mean, the players are now, the characters are, like, level 14, so, like, even single big bad monsters, like, you have to go really far into CR to make that a challenge. So the other thing I've been doing a lot is, like, throwing hordes of small monsters at them, because it's like, yes, like, it's so fun, you can fireball and, like, firestorm and ice storm, and, like, wipe out these huge amounts, but what do you do when they keep coming and your resources dwindle? It's that interplay of also, I mean, usually those also start too, and I think they work well with that kind of dungeon spirit of like trapping everybody in a small space, and then outside there's this assault coming from all directions. So that can be a very compelling way to set up a D&D game as well, especially at higher levels. Yeah,
I feel like legendary actions too can be very scary because those are things that just keep happening that the creature can do, and there's kind of usually nothing you can do about it. Or layer actions, initiative count 20 every time. You can have this countdown and add time pressure, excuse me.
Oh, Phoebe.
Add time pressure, Halloween cat. Hi, May. And yeah, like legendary actions are usually, I don't know, to me, they're always a little bit scary.
They're scary because when something has legendary actions that this is going to be, like, this fight is bringing it.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're doing a fight with, like, hundreds and hundreds of zombies, they should collectively have a legendary action until you've killed, like, half of them or something.
That's such a good design idea.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I love regional actions or something, or regional effects. It's what they call them. So like some bigger monsters, they start to influence not just their layers, but entire regions. I think that like goes back to, looking at the atmosphere, for setting up these games. Like if you're walking through this swamp where everything is dead and shades are just walking around aimlessly, like before you even get into the fight, like that already puts your players so on edge and, really motivates them to fight the thing that is causing this horrible atmosphere to pop up. So
speaking of atmosphere, Lisa, you wanted to talk about adding ambiance into games, whether in person or virtual.
Yeah, I feel like especially now that everyone's playing virtually, it's like kind of retooling how to make games feel spooky when you're just sitting at your computer with a webcam. So in person, you could have like all sorts of like minis and setups and people can see the monsters they're facing, or you as a dungeon master can set up special lighting and have your like Sirenscape going for music. But I've been playing, it's not even a horror game, but just like Dungeon of the Mad Mage, going through Undermountain, and have wanted to figure out, well, how can I add atmosphere even to that game? So one thing I've learned is that YouTube has so many amazing ambient sound sets, some of them way spookier than others, but they'll run for like 2 or 3 hours, so usually enough for a setting, or you could line up a little playlist for your players to click through at different points of the game. So that's something that I found is really helpful.
I'm really enjoying, like, I've been doing a lot of handouts more because, it's easier for me to make cool handouts on my computer, and then I can just line them up. So I can use something like, if I have all of these things preloaded into Roll20, I can go ahead and like tell everyone flip to screen 2, and then it's this like scary script with blood stains that I've been able to like make real quick in like Photoshop or even Paint. So like I feel like my options and my visuals have actually gotten a lot stronger. So like, you can go online and you can find, like an image of a scary misty forest and, set that as the background for like, maybe you have a separate Zoom screen, on your game where it's just all of these images that kind of summon the mood. Or if you are using a virtual tabletop, have those loaded in. So just everywhere you go, there's just a reminder, a visual reminder, and then of course pairing it with an audio reminder is a really effective way to sell that horror.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, because even if you make like a cool handout on your computer and you just like print it on a piece of paper, that it's like, it requires more skills to arts and crafty sorts of skills to like make a physical handout that's really going. Yeah, exactly.
I think my partner actually has an article on D&D Beyond about creating handouts, so it's like digital handouts, and how easy it is to just like set that up and grab a cool parchment background, and some art assets and make a cool background.
Yeah, I've definitely looked this up on DM's Guild. There are a lot of great like just parchment backgrounds already that you can buy in those packs. So
Devin Rue has a bunch of free ones with stained parchment.
If we want to talk about people, though, who are really good at making those like physical, in-person, tactile handouts, I've been loving everything Eric Jordan, who works for the company that makes Idle Champions, has made for his Strahd game. It's Eric Remy, Remy Jordan, on Twitter. And his handouts are good, but I'm not that level. And I feel like if I make like a cool graphic, it'll still look like a cool graphic and be really immersive digitally.
I'm really excited because since I wrote Rime of the Frost Maiden, I treated myself and got a Beatles and Grimm.
Ooh, oh yeah, or have someone make all the quiz.
Yeah, well,
for you.
yeah, because like they are expensive. So I've never gotten one. I've just lusted after pictures of like these really expensive kits. But I was like, you know what, F it, I deserve this. So I bought it this time. I'm really excited to see what that looks like, from a professional standpoint, and then maybe do some work myself, like how can I replicate the experience I have with this box? Or you can go online and look at like what they have done and be like, oh, how can I do this? How can I do this digitally? How can I do this in person? And just there are so many ideas out there, so much creativity about handouts and other resources. So get out there. Support some Patreon accounts. Like people are making awesome stuff all the time. There's so many Patreons that they just specifically make creepy backgrounds for your virtual tabletops, or they specifically like curate these playlists you can use. So just do some searching and support some artists in the meantime.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
In chat have also mentioned candlelight. And like flickering fireplaces and stuff like that. It'd be really fun to play a D&D game by candlelight.
I will say, do consider using LED candles when you do this. I ran, gosh, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. I ran like a Halloween game and I was like, this is going to be so great. And like, I only had like candles in the middle of the table and it was so dark and creepy. And about an hour into my game, of course, somebody knocks over the candle. And they still have their like character sheet that is burned like across. And so fire
I think
safety,
that means your character gets fireballed. I don't make the rules.
I think, it was very funny.
Especially with paper character sheets.
But do consider, yes, electronic candles.
Yeah.
Danny Yogani says it's fun to have candles controlled by a remote and have them over. They all go dark.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yes.
This LED one. Oh, that's
and ambiance. Shout out to Cantrip Candles, who makes wonderful nerdy candles that are also like beautiful and burn well, but have atmospheric scents.
Yeah, I still keep trying to buy things from them, and they sell out right before I get there, which is great. That a small business is doing so well. But yeah, definitely cantrip candles, scented candles. Even just for you as the dungeon master, if you are playing virtually, I find that really helps me get in the mood.
Yeah, I feel like even if you're playing virtually, you could make a list of things that you feel like would really set the atmosphere for your game, and players could have the option to try to do their own little setup. Like you could tell them like to have candles if it's going to be a spooky game. If they're going to be going through, I don't know, a haunted forest, recommend getting like a pine scented candle, or something like that. I don't know.
If you're really into it, send them a little like letter or package or something. Yeah, that'd be very sweet.
Yeah.
Or send something to your DM, because DMs always deserve more appreciation.
Or it could be like that sort of thing when you make like a big meal for people and they like send funds, and then you and then you make food. That way it's still like a fun surprise, but everyone's contributing. That'd be really fun. Justice has a great suggestion. You can also change your virtual backgrounds to spooky ambient scenes.
Definitely. Yeah.
Take advantage of that zoom.
I like my spooky tree that I like putting up for scary things like that. You can find them all over the place.
I have spooky books.
Ooh, books are scary. You have to read.
Wait, that's scary.
Let's talk a little bit about, and I know this is blaspheme, but games that are not D&D. Maybe games that are meant for horror specifically. They could be super niche, just horror in general. Do they have any rules that you can easily hack into a Dungeons & Dragons game? For instance, I love playing the Alien RPG because there's stress mechanics and they have like this like stress table. So I feel like you could make something where when someone fails a wisdom save, there's like a table of effects that you can randomly roll, and they increasingly get worse on the table. Or maybe if you roll below a certain number, you get to roll on this stress table.
Yeah, that's actually a very similar mechanic to another horror game called Mothership. So Mothership is a sci-fi horror game that also it uses stress mechanics, and basically it's like over the course of a game you build up stress, and then once you reach a certain threshold, you have to roll for panic checks.
Yes.
So that can be really, really interesting. And then also stress is influenced by all the other like members of the party. So like if you see, for example, your fighter or your tank go down, the rest of the party might incur stress because you're seeing, the person who would protect you go down. And then of course panic checks, you can absolutely lift these tables from other games and then convert them to a D20 system if you would like. But yeah, I'm just looking at the Mothership right now, and like these panic checks, of course, if you fail, then things happen, the situation escalates. So, and it can be like positive things like laser focus, like you go in there and like you manage to push through.
I like that. Positive things too.
Or you start to, hallucinate something, maybe if you like totally break. And of course, like the ultimate bad one is like you suffer a heart attack and you like instant die. So you could, depending on the type of game you're playing, there's a big range of like how your characters respond to panic that I feel absolutely has a place in Dungeons and Dragons.
I feel like Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I really enjoy the game Dread, where you have a Jenga tower on the table. It's a role-playing game where you have a Jenga tower on the table, and when your character... Sorry, can you guys hear that outside? Hopefully it's not. Okay, good. When your character does something that has a real chance of failure that's difficult, you have to pull from the Jenga tower. And the result of that is that the game naturally increases tension. It has this build of tension as the game goes on. And, it keeps being more and more tense as it gets harder and harder to pull from the Jenga tower. And it feels so good when you get it. And it's okay when the Jenga tower topples, your character dies.
I love that.
Yet it's such a balance of risk and reward.
Yeah. Quick safety note too. We should also mention that there is a big discussion right now about sanity mechanics and ableism that we should absolutely bring up when you are playing with things like madness or sanity or conditions
calling
that
people
affect,
crazy or
that
whatever.
affect people's mental health. You do need to do your research and make sure that the way you're doing that is responsible. Yes, because calling people crazy and like writing people off as like, oh, all they are is their broken brain. Like,
or the villain
like
is a horrible person who wants to destroy the world because they're, have madness affecting them. Yeah.
That's also just bad storytelling. It's not compelling. That shows your weakness as a storyteller if you are falling on those tropes. So level up. Do your research and, invite things like stress mechanics or, panic, things that are common to everyone into your table and see what those do for you before falling on old insanity tropes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for bringing that up, Celeste.
Yeah.
I was going to chime in and say that all of these different rules that we're bringing up, I feel like would really add to a sort of game where you're going through like a haunted house, the sort of thing where you constantly have to make wisdom checks because it's atmospheric horror, just spooky things are going to happen to you. And I feel like that would be awesome to have a Jenga tower for. Like if you fail your wisdom check, you have to take a piece, or you can take a piece and roll with advantage if the tower doesn't fall. But I feel like you'd need a separate table for the Jenga tower because you're rolling dice, and that's just dangerous. Or not. Make it extra stressful.
I guess if you usually use virtual dice, like if you're using the virtual dice on D&D Beyond, maybe use those healing potion dice for good luck. But yeah, separate. But at least if there's a separate separate table, that people have to get up and go over to that table, and that seems risky too.
Oh, also true.
Every time I refill my wine, I would risk doubling that tower. Oh, somebody, Doug in Texas said cooperative games with a secret traitor are always fun to trying to work together while not fully trusting the other players. I feel like that is something you can do using NPCs or getting like clues that only some of the players have, or even like things like splitting the party, or those are things and mechanics that you can definitely explore in your games to really amp up the creepy factor. And I feel like a lot of other games have great tools for how to incorporate those scenes just between different party members, or making these NPCs who might betray at the very end or not. That's one of my favorite things to do, put somebody very suspicious in there and then they really are just here to help.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a part of Alien, I think it's Alien, as well, where everyone in the party has some sort of secret motivation that actually like advance as the game advances. It's just not trusting your party totally, I think, is fun for one-shots or short games.
Yeah, definitely shorter games. And also, if you are setting up another player to be a traitor, that player needs to know and be in on it with you before that happens.
Oh my god, Clove Latte, Among Us RPG when? Can you imagine?
Speaking of Among Us, do you want to hype something?
Oh yeah! Oh, I totally forgot. All three of us actually are going to be playing Among Us on Monday around, I think we said 7. Well, wait, no, 5.
5.
At 5 Pacific time, right here on this channel, as well as like some other friends who are in the RPG verse. So it was nice being friends with all of you while I could still be.
Wait, if I make this many puns, then surely our friendship
we cannot trust. Oh no, that's gonna be a mess.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Another really amazing horror game is 10 Candles. And one thing I really like about that game is that you go into it knowing it's going to be tragic horror. You know your character is going to die by the end, so that changes your frame of mind. And at the beginning of every round of the game, you set new rules for the world that you're in, and you take turns. And it could be something that benefits, so you're struggling to survive, so it benefits your party, or it could be something that makes the game even more horrible. But that's part of the fun of storytelling. That's part of, if people really like horror, that's part of what they might enjoy. So I feel like that those rules and that very much like collective storytelling aspect could be fun to include in a D&D one-shot.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
But you know what? I'm realizing it's already 11:47.
How?
You know what that means?
That's scary.
Time for some Q&A with our cute little jelly cubes. All right, same rules as always, everybody. Put question in big capital letters at the front so we can see your question, and also no existential questions.
None.
We're serious.
The scariest questions of all.
Yeah. We can't get too scary.
Too scary.
Oh, Reed Cage, yes, Among Us is going to be Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, right here on my channel, twitch.tv/Lisa Penrose.
Friday afternoon said more like cute and cute. I appreciate you. Thank you.
No, Chris, not only existential questions, no existential questions. Justice asked a really good question earlier on, actually, so I'll start us off with that. Which was, he was wondering, do we find it more difficult to run horror for high-level characters? Because they're so powered up. And that makes me think of Alan Patrick's horror games. I'm forgetting the name of the specific one I'm thinking of, but in general, he does horror really well. He writes adventures for high-level characters, and he just raises the stakes and really leans into that atmospheric horror. Basically, he makes it so you're scared to walk around any corner or open any door. Because just something just horrible to have described to you might happen.
I definitely do feel like in D&D specifically, it is harder to run for higher levels because higher level characters have so many resources to get information already that most people feel like they can figure things out. So I feel like it's challenging to make it feel like the players can use all their resources but still maintain a mystery. And you really need to tread that line of like, yes, you should be able to let your paladin detect good and evil like all around you, and you should be able to give them that answer, and that answer should still make them feel terrified, or you should be able to get out of a house like with a knock spell that's locked you in. So you really have to find the balance and compelling reasons to increase the level of horror beyond character capabilities.
So I was originally thinking higher level parties are easier because you can throw more stuff at them. You don't have to quite worry about, just a TPK or or an unintentional TPK, I guess. But someone in chat pointed out that lower level parties are more afraid of death. They I guess that they're more worried they're going to die. I think if you do it well, if you're able to do it though, that having a higher level party that feels like they're invincible, that feels like they've made it this far, they can get through anything, and then really undermining their confidence in a fun game way, their characters' confidence, not their players' enjoyment, but really like upsetting that expectation and undermining it could be really scary. That they're powerful, but they're not necessarily powerful enough that they can't overpower everything.
Dungeon Mom Designs has a related question, I think. What is the highest level that you've played in a spooky adventure? So that Alan Patrick adventure I'm mentioning, I believe was tier 4 in Adventurers League. I don't think I was level 20 yet, but I was somewhere between 17 and 20, and I was so scared.
Yeah, I feel like probably 12 would be around where I was, so pretty powerful enough that we could resurrect anyone who died. And I feel like for that game in particular, we really leaned into speaking to each character's specific fears, which is a great way to overcome the problem of leveling. Because, if you're pulling details and fears that the characters have, like from their backstory, that's a very effective way to get the horror in without running into, oh no, nothing's high enough level to challenge you. It's already setting yourself up for success.
I think I've had the highest level I've played in a specifically spooky game is only level 6, but I've definitely had moments in higher level games that are very scary. So maybe level 14 or something when I and another party member died, and then we were resurrected but had to flee just after being resurrected, and then my character had spooky dreams and visions of the thing that killed her and all of that. So yeah,
spooky. Major Tomorrow asks, what is your biggest strength in telling a horror story? Atmosphere, domestic horror, jump scares, etc. Good question.
I feel like my biggest strength is probably an atmosphere of paranoia. Is something that I really like to set up. I think I do a really good job of making it so from 1 minute to the next, the players never know who to trust between each other and the NPCs, because there is the complicated network of everybody has their own motivations. So I feel like when your characters feel like they have the safety mat taken out from under them bit by bit, and they don't know where to go or who to trust, that creates a great stage for any kind of horror adventure. So I feel like that's probably my specialty.
I used to run a bunch of Ravenloft, specifically Lemordia adventures, when I was working for the D&D Adventurers League. And I'd say those adventures I leaned a lot on atmosphere of the unnerving and also just things being spoopy, so kind of cute and spooky, which is its own special type of horror.
Yeah.
And it was just lots of really horrifying things being treated like they're normal by NPCs. Lots of like weird little more of like leaning on the exploration pillar where players are discovering things like, I don't know, like a sheep in a field that has a human ear sewn to it instead of a sheep ear, or someone having a nightmare that makes them in the middle of the night, but it's just a vignette with that one character, and then the other characters don't know if they should trust that person or not.
I feel like nightmares that you don't necessarily know if there's any truth to them, right? Like if you're seeing something that's happening actually, or that's a foretelling, or really can be both scary and a great way to advance the plot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I lost track of questions.
Oh, we have one from Glub Bub. How do you differentiate horror from average fantasy? Wait, from fantasy within D&D when most monsters are terrifying, if you think about them?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, okay, so from like, got it.
I guess you can have scary situations, but it's very much like the flavor of encounters in a campaign that I would say put it into the horror setting.
Yeah, I think playing with the build-up is a big thing, because like usually if you are watching a movie and you don't know what the movie is or what it's about, I bet you can probably tell it's going to be a horror movie in the first 10 minutes just on the way it's framed. You know, the way things are progressing, the little clues that start to happen, those moments of like, wait, what? The pacing and the storytelling method, I feel like, are the big things that set up horror. And, you know, the best way to master that is to read horror books, listen to people telling ghost stories. There are so many great podcasts out there, just if you want to listen to the way things are set up, or, engaging in these movies, reading comics is really the best way. And then I promise you will start to see that trend and get that pacing that is so unique and special about horror.
It's always great to consume the kind of media you want to emulate and bring into your games or writing, which I think might also help with the question that let me scroll back up. The question that Greg asked, which is any recommendations for making an adventure spooky but not scary, say for kids or squeamish adults. Definitely, you know, consuming media, but also I have to go back to like safety tools and talking with the people. If you're writing an adventure for general consumption, that's harder. But if it's a specific group of kids or squeamish adults, people find very different things and different levels of things scary or spooky. Like some people might find body horror absolutely terrifying, but be fine with like zombies and ghosts. And some people might be the other way around. Or spiders, or, you know, spooky atmosphere or traps or whatever. So I feel like it really does depend on the people.
Yeah, I will also say just real quick, if you are playing, especially with kids or people who do get scared, make sure that your adventure ends with you taking care of the evil or whatever the monster. Defeat the monster, unmask the villain, banish the evil, whatever it is, make sure you get to that in your game. So it's defeated and finite in your mind, so it won't haunt and stay with the players after that, especially for kids. They need to believe that they have taken care of something and it is done and finished.
And that helps the scariness stay at the game table and hopefully be fun at the game table, but not be scary in real life.
I feel like another safety tool that would help with that would be to have a cooldown session after the game, which also helps people kind of transition away from game mode back into real life. I'd also say if you're trying to write something more spoopy for kids, rather than consuming and taking inspiration from especially scary media, maybe something like, I don't know, like a Scooby-Doo themed adventure would be kind of the exact tone and vibe. Yeah.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, we're like at the end.
Oh gosh, we should do outros.
Okay. All right. let's go in backwards order. Let's start with Hannah.
That's me. I am Hannah Rose. You can find me all over the internet at Wild Rose Mage. I do D&D editing and design and streaming with friends. All three of us will be on this channel at 5 p.m. on Monday playing Among Us.
And it's me, Celeste Konowich. I am a freelance Dungeons & Dragons designer, streamer, podcaster. The best way to keep up with everything I'm doing, writing, streaming, making, recording, is to follow me on Twitter at ckonowich, or if you want to see the full catalog of my work, check out celestekonowich.com. Stay tuned on the DM's Guild. Hannah and I have something very cool that's coming out soonish. And other than that, check out Dino World if you want a creepy adventure. If you like the horror in Jurassic Park, pick up a copy of Dino World, which is, of course, a Jurassic Park themed Eberron adventure to see some scary stuff. Yes.
I had so much fun editing that, Celeste.
Yay! Good. There's definitely like that swarm moment we were talking about. I have a scene like that in there that is very fun.
Ooh.
To run, so.
Great. And I am Lisa Penrose. I am the brand manager for Dungeon Masters Guild. And when I'm not helping other people create for DM's Guild, I am a storyteller and D&D writer myself. Recently, an adventure of mine called Hell Hath Fury was published over on TTRPG with Jetpack 7. I'm also right here on this Twitch, twitch.tv/Lisa Penrose, streaming lots of like witchy and gentle content. And you can follow me at Lisa Penrose on Twitter, and I'm really active on Instagram these days, so give me a follow over there. Thank you, everybody, so much for hanging out with us for D&D Community this month. And congratulations to the winners. And thank you, Brittany and Doug in Texas, so much for those gift subs. That was very sweet. Made my day. All right. Bye, everybody. See you next month.
Bye.